All right, so this project, we're going to start off, and we're going to be modeling one of these items, or actually all three of these items. We're going to start off with this guy in the middle here. So we're going to go to File, we're going to go to Project Window, and we're going to make a new project. Sarcona underscore product shot. And we'll set this to the 2510 folder. Accept. Alright, now let's look at the shape of this. We have two things going on here. One of them is the base itself, and then we have the cap up here. Now the cap has all these ridges that are inside it. Those ridges we're going to ignore. We can actually add those in later. We also have a label on top of this that we'll add in at some point. And then there's probably a label on top which we'll also add in at some point. This jar here, we have some other stuff going on, same color, essentially the same style. And again, two pieces. We have the base, and then we have this nozzle. And then the other one here, base again, nozzle again. And you can see how the nozzles are slightly different from the white to the orange. This actually has some ribbing right here, kind of like this. And then it has like the same pumping kind of mechanism. Okay, and this one probably has the same ribbing, but we just can't see it because of the low resolution of this image. All right. So we're going to start modeling the little one. So I'm going to go to my front view, and I'm going to change my background color so you can see a little better. And I'm going to start off, last time we modeled stuff, we used a curve. This time I'm going to start off with a cylinder. Okay, so there's my cylinder. And jump to perspective view. I didn't need to go to front view, I just did it. And I'm just going to make this bigger. Okay, so I need this to basically be the size of the container, the entire container, including the lid. So maybe like that. I like to have my reference up on the other screen just so I can kind of, use it as a reference. Now I'm going to want to tweak the shape of this. So a couple things I want to do is get rid of this triangle thing here. So if I come over to my channel box and I have these cap options, I set that to 0. And in my height, I'm going to set that to, let's say, 2. Okay? Because this is a good way to kind of separate the base from the lid. Okay, so probably something like that, maybe a little bit bigger, like that. Okay. Now I also am getting some faceting going around, but that could be taken care of at a different point. I could just kind of smooth it out by hitting 3, and then it'll be nice and smooth. Now here it's not, but it will be. So I'm going to right click, go to edge, and double click this edge, and then just move it up to where the cap is ending. So right about there. Okay, it doesn't have to be accurate, it's just a representation of it. At any point I could grab all the points and move them up or down or whatever. So now I'm going to grab this face up top, and I'm just going to scale it in. Okay, and I'm actually going to scale it in and move it down. All right, so here's where my transition happens, where the cap and the base are like two separate pieces. If you look at this shape here, you can see how this kind of comes up and then curves in and then comes up. So that's what I'm going to try to get here, is that it's going to come in, curve in, and then go up. Alright, so now I'm going to extrude this face. So I'm going to go to Edit Mesh, go to Extrude, and then I can grab this blue arrow and just pull it up. Okay. That should be good. Alright, so now what I can do is I'm going to take this again, and I'm going to extrude it again. So I can go back to the menu, Edit Mesh, Extrude, or I can hit G, because I just did an extrusion, so it'll just redo that last command. Alright, so once I've extruded, then I'm going to hit the R key to get to scale, and then I'm just going to scale this in. Maybe not that far, maybe like that. Okay, so I'm going to try to create that little lip. Like that. And then I'll extrude again, so I'll just hit G, and then I'll nudge it down just slightly. Okay, Now this transition isn't the exact spot that turns into the lid. It actually happens up here because it does it on the base and then the lid just goes straight. Okay, so I want to encapsulate that also. So I'm going to go to my object mode and click on it. I'm going to go to my mesh tools and go to the insert edge loop tool. And I'm going to click an edge loop about here. Okay, so I can click and drag and get at the exact spot that I need it. Then I'm going to go with that edge that I've selected or created. I'm going to go to the hotbox. I'm going to go to edit mesh, and I'm going to say bevel. And then if I just take my fraction down, 0.2, yeah, that was good. Let's say 3 segments, maybe 4 segments. Let's see. I want to have 1 in the middle and 2 on the outside. 1, 2, 3, 4. There goes around 4 segments here. All right, so now I have 1 segment in the middle and then 2 on the top and 2 on the bottom. Okay, so I'm just going to double click this middle one, and then I'm going to grab the middle scaler and just scale it in slightly. Okay, and then I'm going to double click this top one, and I'm going to go to the move tool and just pull it down slightly. Okay, so now if I were to go back to object mode and click on this and hit 3, ignoring the bottom right now and ignoring the softer top, you can see how I've created a nice little seam right there. So it looks like that's where the actual cap would go in. Click on it, hit 1, now we're back. Okay, we also have a nice transition here coming up and then going into that. We could adjust that too, but right now it's good. The next thing I want to do is fix this bottom. So when I hit 3, I don't want to do that. So I'm going to go to the face. There it is. I'm going to go back to my edit mesh. I'll go back to extrude. And then I'm going to hit the R key and scale this in. Okay, maybe about there looks good. Then I'm going to hit R again, or sorry, G again, then hit R to scale, and then bring it down. So now when I hit 3, you'll see I get this nice smooth transition coming up, smooth transition going here, and then into the lid. Now I want this edge right there to be a tad lower. Okay. Now I'm losing some of my flatness, because you can see here this actually looks like it's rounded coming off. Well, I don't want that to look rounded. I want this to look where my transition happens, but this is pretty straight. Okay, so I'm going to double click the edge down here and go to my edit mesh and go to bevel, because a bevel is nice because it kind of holds that shape. So let's say 0.1, 2 segments. So now when I hit 3, back in object mode, you can see that the bottom of this is holding its shape pretty good. It's holding a nice little round right here. And if I needed to, I could go back to that bevel and take the fraction up to maybe 0.2, and that'll make that bevel a little bit bigger. Okay, cool. So now I'm going to take this edge, there we go to edit mesh, go to bevel, and now if I go back to my object mode and click and hit 3, you see that I get essentially that same shape. Okay, where it's round here, it comes up, and then it rounds and then comes up to that, and then goes in. Okay, and there's my lid. Now my lid is actually a little bit too soft at the top, so we'll fix that too. So all of these areas where it's too soft, I'm going to go to the edge mode and double click. I'm going to hold down shift, double click. I'm going to hold down shift, double click. Okay, this one's not going to let me do it, so I'm just going to click off of there. Then I'm going to, so I basically just have these 2 loops selected on top. Then I'm going to go back to my edit mesh and do a bevel here. And I just wanted a slight bevel, just like that. I'll put in an extra division. That should be good. Then I'm going to go to face mode and grab this one. So sometimes we had to grab edges to put the bevel in. Sometimes we had to grab faces. So I'll go back to edit mesh, go back to bevel, and that will put this bevel in. 2 segments, back to object mode, hit 3, hit F. And now you can see pretty closely we have this jar modeled. Okay? I'm just comparing. Yeah, that's good. Now we could adjust things further, just so you can see the process. If I went to Vertex Mode, I don't want to marquee any vertices in here, because what could happen is, let's say I just marquee like this, and I start to move things, I'm actually grabbing stuff that I don't want to move. Okay? So you want to grab stuff in the front view, or the side view, or the top view, because then we can really ensure that we're grabbing just what we need. Okay, so if I go to the front view and I'm like, okay, well I want to grab this and make this transition a little bit longer, or make this transition a little bit shorter, you see how easily I can do that. Okay, back to object mode. There we go. All right, so there's our cream, our hand cream setup. Now this is modeled for the lid to be on. If we want the lid to be off, we'd model it a different way, kind of like we did the previous assignment. Okay. We could model it still with polygons and cubes and all this, just like we are doing here, but instead of extruding it out like this, we would be extruding it inward and kind of creating this. Oops. Jar opening. And again, we'd have to decide what we wanted, the end result to be, but that could look just like that jar. And if I decide I need any of these edges to go away, I can go to my edge mode and double click an edge, hold down Control, and hit delete. All right, so now you'll see, oops, that we essentially have, really quickly I just modeled the other one. We really need to model this one, but just so you can see, I can model this, and now it looks like the lid is off of there. Okay, and I could even scale it down slightly because I think I'd want this to be a tad bit smaller than that one. Let me grab this, shift, double click. There we go. So it's just slightly smaller in case I wanted to put the lid on. There we go. Okay. And then if I really wanted to get something, oops, I made a mistake. See, I messed something up here, so I'll double click that edge, Control delete it. There we go. Okay. If I was really modeling this with the cap open, it wouldn't be just like this, because there would actually be a helix. And I would take the radius of the helix up, down, like so, 0.05, okay. I would take the width out, I would take the height down, take the coils maybe down to 2, and then you can see how I can even create the look of having something that would turn, to tighten. So again, it just adds another level of realism to that scene. So I'm going to save this for later. Maybe I'll use it, maybe I won't. Okay. At your point in your career and your education, it's always good to kind of play with things and try it out. That's the only way you're really going to lock it in. All right. So here is our lotion. Now, in order for us to create this lotion, make it look realistic like this one, we have to give it a nice texture. So I'm seeing two major areas that we need to focus on. One is the top of this, and then one is this label. So if I go to lotion jar, you can see like this one has a label on top, this one has a label on the front. I believe that lotion that we're looking at has two. Two makes it look extra nice. So we're going to focus on using creating two labels. So we're going to do that process inside of Photoshop. But for now, what we need to do is lay out some stuff. So I'm going to assign to this a surface shader. So I went to lighting and shading, I went to assign favorite, and I went to surface shader. I'm going to call this one checkerboard underscore surface. All right, there we go. And then to my out color here, I'm going to click on the map and go to checker. And then hit 6 so I can see it. Okay, so right now this is the checkerboard, and this is how it's being displayed on here. So obviously these aren't connecting correctly. We're not seeing this displayed nicely here. Before I close this window, I just want to go to the Place 2D Texture and change my repeats to 15 and 15. Okay, so I can definitely see I get more checkers in this area, but this stuff just looks like it's messed up, especially down there. Ugly. So let's fix that. So our two areas of concern, right up here at the top, and right here in the front where we're going to be putting our label. Okay. Now if I hit 1 and 3, you can see that there is some subtle change in the texturing. Okay, it's kind of like shrinking in. You can really see it like right there. It's kind of like shrinking in quite a bit. Okay, but it's not enough that we're going to need to really worry about it for this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my face mode here. I'm going to click on this face. And I'm going to go to UV, planar mapping, right there, planar option box. And I'm going to project this in the Y direction. We're not going to see a huge difference happen, but it will be kind of important to us of what is happening. So I planar map, we get lots more squares. Under Window UV Texture, or UV Editor, we get this screen. Now we can't see what's happening here, so I'm going to go to Image and either dim the image, which makes it a little bit more visible, or display the image off altogether so we can really see what's happening. So if you look, you can see this like orange line kind of coming around. That's that specific face. Let me scoot it over and get it out of the way just so it's out of the way. Okay, so if I go to UV and I marquee it, okay, this is essentially that face, so I can lay out a nice texture right here on top of it, and it works wonderfully. Now I'm going to grab the faces here, all the way around the center base of this. Okay, now in this one, the label is right here on this area. It doesn't exceed up there or down there. Now we also have, we have the front of this, which is obviously where the label would go. And then we have the back of it, okay? So I don't need the whole thing around it. I just need the front. So if I go to my front view and marquee straight across, I get all the way around. If I switch to my right view, I can hold the control key and deselect that. So now if you look, I have this area. That's still maybe a little bit too much. Go here and there. There we go. So that might be a good area for us to put that label, okay? So then I'm going to go to, hit 6 again. I'm going to go to UV. I'm going to go to cylindrical mapping and hit project. And what we're going to see is that it projects a cylinder on here. Let me change my background color so you can see it a little better. There it is. Okay. So what I need to do is move that cylinder closer because right now it's too far out. And what's happening is in the center of this, I'm getting squares, but then I'm getting these rectangles. So in order to fix that, I have to move this projection a bit closer. Now it's a little bit tricky to do that. There's in one of the corners there's a little T, a little red T. So I'm going to click that. And when I click it, then I get these move manipulators. So I can grab the blue manipulator and pull it closer to the center. And as I do, you'll see that this is actually right there. It's making them all rectangled, which is fine. It's better than having some rectangle and some not. Okay. Now if I look at where this moved to, I can look at the project center Z and see that it's moving that. That's what's controlling where this is. This should be at 0. Okay, our object is at 0, that should be at 0. Okay. And then I can grab the scale. So I'm going to grab the red scale. I'm just going to click on it. and then I can grab this middle scale and pull it up. And so what that's going to do is it's going to make this bigger, but still uniform. Okay. Then I'm going to grab the green manipulator and pull it up until these rectangles look square. Alright, so that's our goal, is to get squares, not rectangles. So we just keep tweaking it until we get it pretty close. Now it's pretty close. Okay. So now back in the UV editor, I'm going to grab this center circle and scoot it over. And we're going to see, obviously this is smaller than that, but now we have two objects here, and these are our labeling areas. So this is one label, that's another label. All of this stuff is just junk. We don't really need to worry about it because it's just going to be random stuff. So I'm going to grab the UVs for this, and I'm just going to scale it down super tiny like that, so I can still see it, but I'll shove it off into this corner right here. So you can see where the, I guess it's the best one, where the 0 is here and the 0.1 and the 0.2, it's right in there. Okay. Now these two, I'm going to bring back into here. Now I need them to fit in this top right corner. I also need them to be about the same size. So I'm going to grab this one and scale it up. And as I scale it up, okay, I'm just using the middle mouse button and clicking and dragging. I want this to be about the same size squares as the other one. It doesn't have to be accurate, just about. Okay, and that's about the same size. Okay, so then what I want to do, I want to make sure they're separated. I don't want them like on top of each other. I'm going to grab both of these and scale them both down together just by using the middle mouse button again. And then I'm just going to try to fit both of these objects inside of this window. Okay, without them overlapping. There we go. So this top right here, I want to have my front label, my top label, and then just the extra junk. And the extra junk could have actually gone over there too, wouldn't have been a big deal. Alright, so that's cool. So now I'm going to go to object mode, click on it, and I'm done with this checkerboard business, so I'm just going to assign a, I'm just going to assign a Mila, M-I-L-A, right there. Okay? Now this is where our texture is actually going to come in at. So I need to build my texture. I need to go into Photoshop and actually draw what I want these textures to look like. Now the reason we did this is so that when we create the texture, that it's going to lay perfectly right here and perfectly right there. Okay? So I'm going to go to the UV editor still. I'm going to go to polygons and say UV snapshot. And then I'm going to erase the out UV and call this small lotion jar. Okay, for my resolution, I'm going to go 4096 by 4096. Everything's cool there. I'm going to hit OK. Alright, now once Photoshop is open, then I can go into my file browser. And inside of my product shot, inside the images folder, there's that small lotion jar image. Now what that snapshot should do is it should bring in our UVs that we had in here, these things here. Now they are here, we just can't see them. I'm going to hit Control H just to get rid of this grid. There we go. And I'm going to double click on the layer 0 over here off to the side. And then I'm going to do a stroke. Okay, and when I do a stroke on this, you'll see that I can then see my stuff. Now I'm going to take this to outside, which is what my default was, and then just take this down to a lower setting. Okay, and then you can change the opacity if you need to, or the color, or whatever. I'm going to hit OK, and now I'm ready to build my texture. Alright, so this isn't a Photoshop class or a design class, but I'm just going to give you a couple tips to do something like this. So the first thing I want to do is, while looking at this image, is that I want to create a base color to this. Okay, so we use layers. So I have layer 0 right here. This is my UV. So I'm just going to double click it, name it UV. And then I'm pretty much going to just lock this because I don't want to ever paint right on top of this thing. Now layer 1 should be under UV so that the UVs are always visible. Okay, so now I'm going to pick a default color. So I'm going to go to my color swatch, I'm going to pick a color. And I'm going to fill it with that color. So there's my default color. Okay, so yeah. So then I'm going to go through and paint what I want the textures to look like. So I know right here this is the front of my container. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So these two are the center of this. So if I look at an actual label, I can see it says 500 milliliters, and then it says 12.69 or 16.9 fluid ounces. Okay, so I'm just going to zoom in, and I'm going to do 500 milliliters. Make sure this is a size that I can see. That's too small. There we go. There we go. All right, and I'll make this black so we can see it. And if I pull open my settings here, there you go, 500 milliliters right there. And over here, I'm just duplicating this. $16.9 fluid ounces. Okay. Now there is actually like some sort of indicator, like this is where the center is. So maybe I'll add that in there too. I think, let me scoot this over. I want to take this 500 and scoot that down to here. Good. And then 16.9, I'll scoot over there. Good. All right, maybe I'll grab both of these and just scoot up a touch. Good. Okay. So that I can use my other tools to create the rest of this. So I can go to my shape tool, rounded rectangle. All right, so now it's a rounded rectangle. I'll add a color to this. And its properties, come on. Stick you over here, stick the info palette over there. It's on top of my UV, so of course I'm going to pull it down below my UVs. I don't want this color to be white. I would like it to be maybe a light brown or whatever. And I don't need a stroke on it. I say no stroke. Okay. So now the rest of this is just kind of like building a label. You want to spend some time doing it. You don't want to rush the process. And there's no guidelines as to what what the label is supposed to look like. I don't want you to use something that already exists. I want you to like create your own label. Pull this down here. Okay. And whatever text and stuff you use there, obviously you can duplicate it and use it here too. So just to see the process of going back, I'm going to turn off my UVs. Actually, let me give something over here. So I'll just put a new layer. Oops. And I will color this like that. Wonderful. All right, so I'm going to save this into my source images. And one is going to be a PSD, so I just save it just like it is, PSD. Then I turn the UVs off, and then I save it as a TIFF. No layers, save, OK. So now when I go back into Maya, and I have my Mila, I can go to this color map, and I can click on the file, and go to Browse, and go to Small Lotion. And now you'll see that I have this ellipse here, this S weird shape there, if I click on it and hit 3, you can see how there's definitely some squishing that's happening here. But you'll see how later how I can insert some edge loops. And we don't get that much movement. Still there, it's just very, very subtle. Okay, so that's why I don't want you to worry about it now, but you obviously could add them at any point at this point. Okay, so now it's just going to be a matter of creating the label and then just updating this file. So once we do a change inside Photoshop, I say, nope, I don't like that. Let me add a piece of text, and I'll just go pretend that's the name of my product. Okay, get rid of my UVs. Save this as TIFF. No layers. Save. Yes and OK. And then I just save my PSD regular. And then I can come in here and we're done modeling it, so I can delete the history. Then I can go to my Mila and call this small jar. Then I go to the color arrow and just hit reload. And then it reloads my texture, and then I can just continue working back and forth between Photoshop and Maya to create what I want my labels to look like. Now these are two simplified versions of what the label should be. If you look at the label, you can see all the detail that's in them. You can see it has a little ad inside there. You can see how it has this nice logo and some nice text. Same thing for all of these. They have nice little text and logo type things all over the place. And this little K that's right here is used in this spot, and it's used in this spot. And the name, obviously, Kerastase discipline, is used in both spots with the logo. Perfect. The sizing right here is going to be the same. So once we do this one, it's going to be very easy to use the same assets in another one. Okay. So gorgeous. All right. So you're just going to keep going from there, and then the next phase of this is that we're going to start modeling some of the other stuff. Okay, so for now, that's where you're at. Model the container, go in there and create your logo or create your text, your labels for the top, labels for the front, and make them look like actual labels. Typically, people don't want to put any of this stuff. They just want to go there, and I'm done. And that's not what a label looks like. You have to get people into your stuff. You have to make them excited about looking at your product. Okay, so your design classes where they kind of pay off. You can see all these different items and all the different things that they have on their labels to make them exciting and awesome. Called play-up powder. It's funny. All right, so there we go.